of the overall land mass in Nashville. I hear all the time, well, that was a 500-year flood. That's not likely to happen again for another 495 years. However, that's not true. The bet that I would make is that the river continues to act like it has acted the last 100 years, which more than 15 times we've been at major flood level, which is 45 feet or higher. So I think there actually is some urgency to do that. However, if you're living in Bordeaux, Donaldson, Antioch, Bellevue, places that also experience significant flooding, I think we have to talk about an overall county-wide flood mitigation, an overall wide flood plan for the city, not just downtown, but downtown is a huge component of that.
Thank you. Kenneth Eaton.
To spend $100 million to go, 2,000 feet, maybe it's 3,000 feet, and to tell the citizens of Davidson County we're protecting downtown because of all of this investment we've put in, but we're not going to protect your home, is just asinine, really. The answer is no. We can spend $100 million in better use, better places, and I'm totally against it. The mayor has done a great job on some of his investments. There's been a couple of them that were just not well thought out, and one was the AMP, and this one is $100 million here. You know, I hear quickly that if you got a $1.9 billion budget, what's $100 million? Well, it's your tax money, so we got to put it to good use.
Thank you. Howard Gentry.
You know, downtown is the heart of the city, and I can see, if you look at the river now, it's already rising or has risen. I can see the importance of protecting your heart. Your heart doesn't beat, your body doesn't live, and so that is important. I'm more concerned of not necessarily money, but what is the effect of stopping the water at this point. You know, people didn't really start flooding until the rain stopped because of what we did after the rain stopped. So when you stop the water from going into downtown, where does it go? Who does it flood as a result? So I'm more concerned about the results of making this decision and what we're going to do about the overflow or the flow that occurs as a result of it. So it's more of a holistic process to me, and I would like to look at that. Thank you.
A few quick points. When I was chairman of the school board, whenever I screwed something up pretty well, it would be because I was not transparent and inclusive enough. And I think that's kind of one of the issues we have here. It would have been nice to have some advance notice, have some public conversation, and I think we can debate whether the sequencing of this project is really the best right now. I think it's probably something we need to do, prioritizing over neighborhoods. I don't know about that. Second point is, well, actually, the final point really is it kind of bums me out that we're not going to have Fort Nashboro rebuilt for several more years now. I mean, I remember as a kid going down there and remember the smell of the place, the tar of the wood. And now it's going to be a few years before we get this place back in a decent shape. It's going to be torn down, and it just seems odd to me that this very historic place where the Battle of the Bluff happened, the whole future of the city was determined right there, is going to be sort of a train wreck for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I'm going to differentiate myself and tell you we have to do this. It was not that long ago that we had billions of dollars of impact to businesses and the economy in Nashville. Think of the lives we could have lost because of that flood. It's an insurance policy, and we all have them. We don't like to spend our money on them, but we have them. And so this is a very important investment that we need to make. The money is in the budget. Trust me, I take that very seriously. We are the taxpayers. We are investing in our city, and we're expecting our leadership. They've spent 5 years looking into this, coming up with a very thorough plan, coming up with a way to do it so that it spreads across all of downtown to support our Cumberland River. And so, I encourage all of us to get behind this decision and move forward.
Thank you. Barry.
The only one up here who actually has to vote on this. Thank you for the question. Flood mitigation is actually really critical, and we did see that the river is unpredictable. And I think we can absolutely agree that this is not going to be a 500-year event, that it is going to be something that could happen a lot more frequently. Climate change is real. I said it at the beginning, so we may have some serious concerns. Part of the capital budget process is that lots of things get added to the capital budget. Yesterday, Mayor Dean announced that we were going to have a combination now of a new criminal justice center. That's part of this capital budget. So when it comes time to vote, what we do as part of the capital budget process is we look at a lot of these different pieces. That's coming down the pike. The majority of the $100 million isn't really a wall, it's actually the pumping station that is going into this. So the question is this the best use of our $100 million for flood mitigation? And that will be part of the process that when Scott Potter comes and discusses this with the council and gives us the information that we need, we can make a decision. It's easy to say yes, it's easy to say no, but it's better if you actually have a conversation with the folks who are involved and then make a decision based on what they tell you.
Final 1-minute question, and then we'll have closing remarks. So Jeremy Kane, you'll start this question. Charles Robert Bone, you'll start with the closing remarks. Give us one big idea you have on conservation or sustainability. Jeremy Kane.
Back to my idea about returning our green space around schools to public spaces. I tell the story all the time. If you've been at 21 of these forums, you've heard it quite a bit, and Charles Roberts made a joke about it at least twice. Is my wife and I live in Sylvan Park, and we choose to take our 3-year-old daughter to play at Richland Park or walk on the Greenway or McCabe Community Center and not to Sylvan Park Elementary because it has a rusty fence around it that essentially says stay out. And yet it has green space and it has a playground around it. We need to return our public space or our green space around schools to public space. That forces that collaboration between our school system, with our neighborhoods, with our parks department, where we stop thinking in silos. A lot of the responses today has been about what we're going to do about parks, what we're going to do about green space, what we're going to do about conservation. It has to be bigger than that. It has to be about Nashville together, that it is not just a green space for the schools, but it's green space for the entire community, for the entire neighborhood.
Bone, a big idea.
Mine would be twofold. One, how we expand after school and out of school programming for children, and two, a summer jobs program. When you think about the at-risk children in this community, you think about the enormous task that the school system has before them. That's something that we all ultimately have to be responsible for. And at the end of the day, what's happening to those children when they leave school at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock and return at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning? The NASA program through the library that partners with the Parks Department and with other nonprofits and churches throughout the community is a fantastic idea, is a fantastic program that we need to be able to expand. My sense is today, when you inventory all our after-school programs, we're serving about 10% of the kids who are most at need. What I'd like to see the focus going forward is that we double, triple, quadruple that capacity, but the parks play an enormous role in that, given the community centers, given the parks, and given the programs that are there that I think need to be expanded and would be a huge priority of mine.
Thank you. Kenneth Eaton.
Well, I agree with Jeremy, and I agree with Charles Bone. So if you put the two together, the two ideas, it works perfect. It's basically parks joining schools. It's basically opening ball fields. And opening them up, not closing them up like Jeremy said. Open them up for the communities, putting walking trails for the grown-ups. When we're talking parks, are we talking dog parks? Are we talking people parks? Are we talking kids? I keep looking at, we got to take care of our kids. That's the first priority. And the first priority is the small parks, and we can achieve that. Small parks around schools, to have ballparks, soccer fields, community activities to where you can bring each community together. That makes a better Nashville.
Thank you. Howard Gentry.
Yes. We had a discussion years ago about homelessness, and we created a symposium, and as a result, we created a 10-year plan for homelessness. We did the same with poverty. And we did the same model. And homelessness now, we're housing over 900 homeless people, and poverty rate has dropped, small, but it's still dropped within the city. My plan is to have a huge symposium around conservation, bringing all groups together, even the smaller groups, the ones that say they don't get the support, and really come up with a comprehensive conservation plan for Nashville, maybe a 10-year plan, and move forward with it, and not just have it on a shelf somewhere, but move forward a funded plan, a plan that involves everyone. Thank you.
We have reserved arguably the most green, verdant, dare I say, bucolic property in Davidson County for a special group of people, our inmates. On Cockrell Bend, we have 3 or 4 prisons out there. And 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, that sort of made sense. But as you might know, one of the prisons is closing. And as mayor, I'd like to begin the conversation of how do we transition the state, probably out of Davidson County, but certainly off the most lush, beautiful part of our riverfront. So if you want a big idea, that's sort of my big idea. It's a long-term plan, but we need to start now. I think in 20 years, that could probably be the most desirable part of Davidson County is where our prisons are. Great green space. We have some limited development. That's my big idea.
Thank you. Linda Rebervik.
Yeah, as I started to say earlier, my big idea is that we make a commitment. We set a goal of this is how much of our acreage of land in Davidson County we want to preserve and protect and conserve. And if that number is 155,000 acres, which represents 47% of the county, that was identified in our open plan in Nashville Next, then let's all decide that that's important. Because you can't build over it and go back. We have to make that decision now. We have to look forward, and we have to see that vision, which is what leadership is all about, making bold decisions. Let's set that number, and then let's move forward that way. So if we look at development and how much of the development we have the opportunity for, how much has already been developed, how much is appropriate, and let's make that decision. Let's make it as a community. Let's set that goal, and let's have a smarter Nashville.
Thank you. Megan Berry.
For me, it's about water. And I know that many of you probably remember when the council, not this council, but the council before, did a bold thing, and they swam across the Cumberland River. I will tell you that I was not one of the swimmers, but I got to say, on your mark, get set, go. And I waved. But I absolutely believe that our water is critical. We're getting ready to make significant investments, not only in water and sewer, but also TDOT's getting ready to spend $62 million upgrading I-40 and our bridges, making sure that we are using permeable and all kinds of different ways to make sure that that water filtration hits back into our river so that we have clean water is critical. All you have to do is look at California. Right now, we have an abundant water source. But you know what? That might not always be the case. And if we don't plan ahead and make sure that we have clean and drinkable water and use our river in a way that we can play in it and we can drink it over time in the next 50, 100, 150 years, we'll be sorry if we haven't made water our #1 priority.
Thank you. And Bill Freeman.
Thank you. I've already told you the things that I do in my personal life, the car I drive, at my home, at my office building, the causes that I support. Most of you know what my giving history has been, and this is a cause that I support wholeheartedly. As I look around this room, I see some of our champions of the environment sitting in the audience today, and people that have given their lives and their pocketbooks and their passion, their intellect to this movement. I will appoint those people to boards and commissions. We will make Nashville the greenest city that we can. We'll concentrate on that. Those of you in this room will be a part of that, and I pledge to do that as I've done in my private, personal, and business life for decades. Thank you.
We now have 60 seconds for some closing remarks, and we'll start with Charles Robert Bone and continue in the same order and wrap up with Jeremy Kane. Charles Robert Bone.
One of my greatest frustrations is that I believe the misplaced priorities at the state level and the rank partisanship at the federal level are failing cities, whether it's pre-K, whether it's social responsibility, or whether it's environmental protection. So that now becomes left to the cities. What I'm encouraged about is that in Nashville we have the world's greatest nonprofit community, most of which are represented here this morning. Pound for pound, dollar for dollar, good boards, good resources, good missions. We have a colleges and universities system that's second to none for a city of Nashville's size, that are not apathetic about the future of Nashville and that are engaged in the priorities of the city. We also have a faith-based community of 700 churches asking what can we do to help? If you will elect me as mayor, I'll make you this one pledge. I'll work with each of those communities, including the Cumberland River Compact, including the Land Trust, including the Greenways, including the Nature Conservancy, to ensure that we advance the mission of the city, that we want to be the greenest city in the Southeast, and that we do all we can to embed a culture of sustainability throughout this community.
Thank you. Kenneth Eaton.
What I want to do as mayor is put together common sense ideas. It really bothers me that when we have to call somebody in California to come out and say, what do we do with our city? We're not California. We're Nashville, Tennessee. We're Music City. We're a little city that's growing. We have to slow it down, and I don't mean slow it down. It's going to do what it does. But we don't want to become, I don't want it to become California. I don't want it to become Atlanta. I still want to be able to know my neighbors, do business in Nashville, and be able to succeed in Nashville. As to parks, greenways, Williamson County has done a great deal with conversation, putting together the land trust there. And it's great to see all of this wide open green space, and it's fantastic. Let's put a plan together. Let's move forward with it, but let's do it slowly. Don't just jump into it tomorrow. Let's put a plan together. And a plan always works if you put it together.
Thank you. Howard Gentry.
Howard Gentry is a creek kid. I grew up in the creeks. I grew up on the lake. I still hunt fish, ride my horse in the woods. I enjoy the outdoors. I was president of Pineal Ridge, spiritual retreat, but it's in Ashland City, 130 plus acres of pristine land, 3 miles of walking trails, a 9-acre lake. We keep it clean. We work it ourselves. We make sure the creeks are clean and the lake is clean and the trails are clean. This is who I am, and this is who I'll be as your mayor. I'll be a person who understands. I'll be a person who has a heart for it. I want my kids to be creek kids. I want my grandkids to be creek kids and lake kids and not come out of those areas with sores and disease. So I want to help make this city the best it can be, and so it'll be part of my culture, part of my spirit, who I am. Thank you.
David Fox.
4 or 5 years ago, my wife Carrington and I started a sustainability experiment in our backyard. We've got to have sustainable food. And so we pulled out the decorative plants and put in okra and arugula right next to my great-grandmother's old iris bulbs. We built a chicken coop, not too well, to the detriment of the first batch of chickens, I'm afraid. But we moved along, and now all the scraps from our table go out into our compost heap, are mostly devoured by the chickens. We're pretty careful about making sure we recycle what we can, so that today, trash day, when I carried the trash can out to the front, we used about 2/3 of our trash can, and all my neighbors had 2 full trash cans. You know, while that's been going on, we see restaurants responding to consumer needs, saying we want to have, water in glass bottles, not plastic bottles. So we're seeing a lot of good trends, and I think education is what we found is the key. So I think with education, Nashville will become a very sustainable city.
Linda Rebrovic.
I want to start by thanking Jeannie and Gina and Emmy and Mikhail. Your time to put this on and to prepare us was very much appreciated, and what you do for this city is very much appreciated, and everyone else who works in those organizations that are here. As you know, my vision and platform is to build a smarter Nashville. And that means I commit to you that this city will continue to grow, but it's going to be a city that works, including education, transportation, and infrastructure. And all of those are important to our quality of life. Nashville needs to continue to have what makes it so great, and that's our quality of life. And the basics are land, water, and air. And you are touching those three topics with everything you're doing every day. So I commit to you, I will support it. I will get behind the plans that we put in place, get them updated immediately, and make sure that we do build a smarter Nashville. And I'm asking for your support as mayor. Thank you.
Megan Barry.
As your next mayor, I promise you that I will lead, advocate, and be held accountable for an environmental and sustainable platform as we move forward. If we want to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, it means having a transit program, an approach that works. It means getting people out of their cars and onto bikes and sidewalks. If we want more land and natural resources, it means creating public parks. It means pocket parks. But it also means making sure that our public parks are safe. And everybody in this room has an opportunity right now to reach out to our governor this week, because he has the pen, to ask him to make sure that we keep guns out of our city parks, because that is key to making sure that we continue to have the park system that we want. If we want more land and water resources, it means that we build responsibly. It means adapting and implementing LID strategies. As your next mayor, I will do all of these things, and I hope that I can earn your vote and your support. Thank you.
Bill Freeman.
Thank you. I've talked to you today about things that I've done over the last several decades to help green initiatives, personal investments that we've made in our company, in my own home, and everything that we do. I'm not a newcomer to these causes, and I won't be a newcomer to these causes in the mayor's office. They'll be a priority. I'll concentrate on them. I think I'm uniquely qualified to explain to business owners and business men and women around the community how these green initiatives pay dividends. It's not just that you're doing the right thing, it's that your customers, your residents, your tenants, your friends understand it, get it, and will reward you for making these right environmental decisions. I've seen that. I've learned it firsthand. I think I'm a great disciple for these causes, and I'll do that as mayor, and I ask for your help. Thank you.
Kane.
In the 1970s, American Airlines, during the energy crisis, figured out that you don't have to paint a plane, or if you don't paint a plane, it actually is more energy efficient, and you actually save more money. At its simplest, the job of mayor is to wake up every single morning focused on getting results. I'm proud to have a record to run on. I'm proud that when I got started in 2006 and my wife let me mortgage our house to start Lead Academy, no public school graduated 100% of its students. I received a letter from the school board saying it was naive to believe that all students would want or could go to a four-year college. As mayor, I'll wake up every morning focused on getting results, whether it's using the innovation and creativity of what American Airlines did, the partnerships and collaboration that I've talked about today and made the foundation of my campaign, but most importantly is thinking about 30 years from now of the results we want in the jobs, in the neighborhoods, in the places that we all enjoyed growing up and we want to sustain and to be here 30 years from now. My name is Jeremy Kane. I appreciate your time and look forward to earning your vote.
I want to thank all the candidates for being creative, sharing your ideas, putting yourself through this, which almost feels like hazing at times. Early voting starts in 3 months, if you can believe it. Let's give them a hand, and you're dismissed.